Welcome back to episode 134 of the Chaos Ball podcast. I'm back. I'm back in the swing of things after not a super long absence, but it felt like my last podcast, which was with my brothers, happened a very long time ago. A month-ish. In the baseball world, that feels, in the grand scheme, not long, but it also feels like lifetimes have happened since then in Mariners world, I would say. Like, a lot of things have happened. Me personally as well. I was super busy with work at the start of the month. I then went to Hawaii for a week in the middle of the month, and then I got sinus surgery. And I'm still on the mend. It's been a little over a week now when this one's coming out. Still recovering. Doing better. Maybe I sound a little congested to those of you who listen to me often, but I couldn't help myself. I wanted to pod about the Mariners. I'm feeling real good about them after they just swept the A's. But so much has happened with them this month, and so little has happened with the actual record that they have on paper. They're now in first, finally, but they continued to kind of flounder around all month and struggle to get over 500. They still aren't over 500 despite being in first. Them doing that in April and May is not shocking. They seem to pretty much do this every single season. This past half decade, this is their theme, is to flounder a little bit at the start, turn it on the second half. We know this. And just flirt with being a little bit over 500, being a little under 500. Donovan has been hurt and then healthy and then hurt again in this time. Cal has been hurt, allegedly back and in the lineup, and not hurt, and then hurt again and actually on the IL for the first time in his career. Coltemerson has been called up. The Mariners have 6 starters on their major league roster right now. There's piggybacking all over the place. That's been the topic of many a conversation the past couple weeks, but so much has happened. I'm here to talk about it and just riff. The Mariners in May, where they're at, Coltemerson, JP, piggybacking, Rob Refsnyder, anything else on the docket, Julio's performance so far. I want to just chat about the Mariners. It has been a little bit too long. Maybe chat about Bryce Harper's toothpaste habits. Who knows? Who knows what could happen in this one? But strap in, because I'm talking at you. No guests, just me. But I think I'll talk about the A's series first before I get into roster construction and Coltemerson and all that fun stuff, because the A's series is very fresh in my mind. It just happened the night I'm recording this. Well, it happened during the day. What a fun series in Sacramento. I mean, they just destroyed the A's. The A's they coming into the series, the A's were in first. Mariners now a half game up in sole position of first place no matter what happens later today with the Rangers. And they just destroyed them. 9-2, 4-1, 9-1. Just worked. Like, it was windy, it was warm. It's a ballpark that loves hits a lot. Which was a little bit of a danger, obviously, for the pitching coming in, because they were employing this piggyback strategy, even though it totally worked. But they held the A's to 4 runs in 3 games, and they scored 22 themselves. Like, the offense came alive. They beat back-to-back lefty starters, which has happened never. No, just kidding. It feels like this year probably that has not happened, because they've been dreadful against left-handed pitching. Worse than we've seen them before, but they just looked so good in all facets of the game, pretty much. The bullpen looked great, starters looked great, pretty much everyone offensively looked good. Everyone got in on the hit party, and there wasn't a ton of home runs. It was a lot of hits with runners in scoring position, which is not what this team does. Maybe outside of Seattle they can do this, which is hopeful. I mean, they're not built for that. They strike out a lot. They hit a lot of home runs. They walk a lot. It's a 3-true outcome type of team, and that's conducive to T-Mobile Park in a good way, because T-Mobile is not the worst place to hit home runs. It is a bad place for every other type of offense, but it's not the absolute worst place to hit home runs, because the fences have been brought in a decent amount. But in Sacramento, it's good for hitting everything. But it's a ballpark that just wants you to get hits, and they did, and they looked great. And the two lefty starters, impressively, who they beat, Gage Jump, a top prospect of the A's, who legitimately looks like he could be an impact pitcher for them this year even, and in the coming years, and they really need that. He gets brought up, and it was initially, it's like, yeah, that's pretty smart to bring him up. Even though it's at home, it's a tough ballpark to pitch in. But against a Mariners team who had been floundering offensively all year pretty much, and especially against left-handed pitching, I think coming into the game, they were, I want to say 28th or 29th in baseball in WRC plus against left-handed pitching. The team is still sticking with their platoons, which is not shocking and not something, something they probably should be doing. You kind of have to stick with it for a while to figure out if it's going to work. And they got to him. Still not a terrible start for him, but they got to him early. They made him work. But what was more impressive was the Wednesday game against Jeffrey Springs, who is the poster child for pitchers that the Mariners notoriously struggle against. The softer tossing lefties with softer fastballs, changeups. They hate these guys, and Jeffrey Springs specifically has just killed them recently. And they got to him today. They got 5 runs off of him and chased him early. I mean, it was miraculous. It was like a different Mariners team out there. Rob Refsnyder hit a home run. He looked good. Victor Robles looked great in this series in the field and at the plate. It was just a good time. It was just a good time watching Mariners baseball this series. To stomp the A's out and take sole possession of first place. Good for the vibes. They head into an off day, go back home, and now they can hopefully close out the month on a high note and hopefully take this lead in the division and just never look back. You hope they can just keep this the whole year. And beating the A's legitimately, like, seriously could be big going into the month of September where they're going to play them again. They don't play them until then, which is crazy. But with, I guess, tiebreaker considerations and also just battling in the division, it's nice to beat them, which is good. It's even money right now on who the biggest competitor is with the Mariners in the division. My mind still goes to the Astros because, be honest with yourself, your mind also went to the Astros because they're not that far back. They're not playing terrible baseball right now. I don't think they're a very good team, but Jordan's unreal. They've had some injury troubles. If they get Hunter Brown back and he's healthy the rest of the season after they get him back, I mean, I can see them being the main competitor, but it's just such a weak division. Such a weak division. But besides the A's series, what else have we learned, really, from the month of May? I don't think this is... We didn't learn this. This is reaffirmed. Dan Wilson just isn't very good at this. We knew this. This A's series does not change my tune on this. He's just in over his head, it feels like, a lot of the time. It felt like a tough month for him where the fan base is taking even a bigger turn on him, and it was already not great after the start of the year that he had. I think part of it is definitely the messaging surrounding the piggyback situation, which I will talk about. I think a huge reason why fans haven't been pleased with that, even though the results have actually been great, is because of just the optics around it. I think a lot of that comes down to the manager and how he sets expectations with the players and the fans and the clubhouse, but that's not what we learned. That's what we've reaffirmed. What else have we reaffirmed? JP, undoubtedly a good leader and veteran in this clubhouse and someone who I would run through a brick wall with. We've gone through ups and downs with JP. We've talked about his fielding a lot, not even just this year, just the past couple of years. This year, especially, it's been under a microscope. But his comments about willingly wanting to try out at third base, he wants to win. He wants Coltemerson to succeed and seemingly will shift to third base long-term this season to accommodate Colt at shortstop if the Mariners do want to pursue that, which is just awesome. I think Ron Divish had a tweet that was like, if anyone else thought he was going to handle this any differently, you just don't know him, which is fair. I mean, JP has really grown into quite the baseball player and quite the guy in the clubhouse. As the longest tenured Mariner, means a lot for him. It means a lot to the clubhouse and the fans for him to just have this attitude. I love JP so much. Genuinely one of the all-time Mariners this century, which is crazy to say, but it's true, especially when you just look at how long he's been on the team, how steadily good he's been despite his lumps in the field at shortstop, which are unavoidable when you talk about him. But it's just, I think third base could work for him. I still don't know if he's going to be a good third baseman, but I think he's going to be a better third baseman than shortstop. And the opportunity cost with Colt at short versus JP is just, I think, undoubtedly going to help the team win an extra little game or two with defensive value, you'd hope. So that's something that was great to see. And JP even echoed, this is where he's at in his career, and he wants to be a career Mariner because he loves it here. I mean, he was like thinking about quitting baseball after his Phillies rise to the big leagues and struggles it really initially until he got traded. And then he said D. Gordon took him under his wing, and Kyle Seager, he credits them and their veteran presence, and now he's doing the same for coltemerson. I'm sure he's great with Cole Young in the clubhouse, the little kiddos in the Mariners clubhouse. That's something that was heartwarming and affirming the past couple weeks with the Mariners. The Mariners also, well, what have we learned? They have 6 viable MLB starting pitchers right now. Yes, even Luis Castillo, totally viable MLB number 5 or even number 4 in a lot of teams' rotations. There's a lot of bad pitchers out there. There's a lot of hurt pitchers out there. A lot of baseball teams would be very, very happy to have Luis Castillo on their team. Maybe not for his salary. I will say that, and that is a fair critique. But that's not something me personally I care about when I'm talking about when he's on the mound. They have 6 viable starting pitchers. They're all on the team. I think it's right that they're all on the team. Is it right what they're doing with them? Up for debate. It's just a tough question. But the other thing we've learned, and I just talked about this, the AOS is very bad. It's indeed very bad. It hasn't gotten better. Debatably, it's actually gotten worse because now there are officially no teams above 500, and the Mariners are in first at 28 and 29. So it's just great stuff. I don't think I think the Mariners are too good to have this look anything like the division in 94 before the strike ended the season, which was on track to be the worst division of all time by a really good margin. There's never been a losing team who won the division, and that was probably going to happen that year, barring a scorcher from any of the teams down the stretch. This season, I don't think it's going to happen, but I feel like even if the Mariners don't play to their, I called them a 91 win team before the season, I think. Even if they don't play like that, I think 85 wins this division. I think if they even get close to 90, it's locked up. Knock on wood. All right, but let's get into one of the specific topics I outlined for myself to talk about today. Let's talk about coltemerson. Let's just build on Colt, JP, left side of the infield, how it's going. They call up Colt, and this came at what felt like a fever pitch for the JP conversations because the team wasn't playing well. And I will repeat this maybe later in this episode a couple times, and I love repeating it, that winning truly does fix everything. In all sports, it really doesn't matter what's happening with your team, who's playing well, who isn't playing well, how things are generally feeling while you watch the team. If they are winning more games than they're losing, it really doesn't matter. And for people like me, I will continue to nitpick the team even when they win, because that's just, that's just how I am. That's how a lot of people are, especially when you're more deep in trying to understand baseball. That's just how it goes sometimes. But for the majority of fans, and even myself, on its face, if they're winning, it's okay, JP's defense doesn't matter if they're going to win 95 games. till he makes like a crucial error in the postseason, and then it crops, and then all the feelings you shove down because they've been winning come back up like a volcano. But no, it felt like the call up didn't feel like a surprise. It felt like it was coming because he'd been hitting well in AAA, not like tearing the cover off the ball, but hitting well. And then it came because Brendan Donovan went on the IL, and that was kind of a shock because the messaging around him was he was taking a day. They were doing some load management with him, which is not ideal, as that was kind of the one knock on him when the trade happened was his injury history, and it's already shown its ugly head before June. But I don't think anyone was expecting him to go to the IL, and then it was all of a sudden, hey, he's on the IL. Colt out of the Rainiers lineup, told he had to go to Seattle, and then he was starting. Which, did he make the drive? Like, he had to have, right? He doesn't have a driver. He just busted up the I-5. Started at third base that night. Pretty electric to just see him already inserted in the lineup. But it's crazy. The vibes are really good with him right now, but I'm going to bring him down for 1 second. With the context of the call-up, it's crazy that, and I talked about this with my brothers, that they paid this man, they extended him, and then just left him in AAA for 2 straight months. And the answer to this, obviously, and what Jerry Dipoto will tell you behind closed doors, like what they're thinking in the front office is obviously we're extending him before he's even touched the big leagues because his value would go up immediately probably. We want to get as much surplus value on the end of the contract as we can, yada, yada, yada. And they probably will end up getting that. But it's crazy just the optics of paying a guy and having him sit in AAA, even though from a team building standpoint, it did make some sense when you had Donovan playing really well and, playing third base, maybe not playing third base well, but he was hitting so well. JP also was back and hitting well, and he's your shortstop. Leo Rivas was awful, and he was the obvious replacement, but you don't want to call up your number one prospect who you just gave $100 million and have him be the guy who plays twice a week as your utility man. Like, that's not what you want to do. And so the Donovan injury gave them a perfect opportunity for an emergency number one prospect call-up, which is just feels so Jerry Dipoto coded to me that is the reason why he was called up. But he was called up regardless. And the Donovan injury, whether he's out for the minimum 10 days or more, it's a good opportunity to see what Colt's made of. And it kicks the can down the road of them having to make a tough decision on where he's going to play. Now, they called him up and they said he's going to play third base. JP's going to play short. And when Donovan's back, Donovan's just going to fill in. Like, they're probably going to want to load manage him a bit because it seems like his groin and everything about him is a little testy. But you still want to play him a lot because he's such a valuable hitter and a good leadoff hitter for this team. And he can play the outfield. He can play right field, left field. You're not going to play him in left probably, but he can play third base, second base. So he's just going to fill in. I have no idea how this is going to work. This comes back to the original headache of calling up Colt, where JP is good enough offensively. You can't just bench JP, but you want Colt at short. You want JP to play third, but Donovan's full-time position should probably be third to get him in the lineup every day. You don't want Donovan to take Cole Young's spot at second because Cole Young has been good, especially in the field, and is coming along on offense and looking like a good player. And you also can't really take out Luke Raley or Canzone from a DH right field perspective against right-handed hitting. And Robles is back now in right field. It's a good problem to have. It's the same thing with this 6-man rotation / piggyback, whatever you want to call it. It's a good problem to have. They have more than 26 players you'd want on the roster right now, is what I will tell you. Maybe on the bench, maybe that's not true. They have more than 9 good players against righties and lefties they want against those guys. Like, maybe when Donovan comes back, we'll see how they handle it. But Donovan can't just be your utility man. He's too good. He needs to be in the lineup every day, or at least the majority of the time. Like, you can't have him playing twice a week. You need him playing 75, 80% of your games at least every week. So we'll see. Maybe Ken Zone will start sucking and Luke Raley will continue to mash, and he'll continue to start in right field against right-handed pitching, and Robles will be the bench right-handed hitting outfielder. Canzone, who knows what happens to him then, and Donovan is just a DH a lot of the time. Who the hell knows? But the point is, Colt's up. He looks good at the plate. Those quick hands, those are sweet quick hands. He's played shortstop a couple times now because of JP leaving games, but he's still just playing third base. Will they just swap them at some point? Who the hell knows, honestly. But that's where we're at, and JP's still hitting well. So, I think at some point this season, it's bound to happen, right? JP's going to be playing full-time third base and Colt full-time shortstop. It's got to happen at some point. And to the Donovan point, maybe another problem will arise. Another injury will happen that necessitates some more movement, and they can just keep kicking the can down the road and not having to make a tough decision, which feels optimal for this current front office to not have to make a tough decision like that. But it just feels great to see Colt and Cole in the same lineup and playing well. It just feels so nice after so long of this player dev and scouting apparatus that is objectively very good now, but they were really clearly very good at consistently producing pitchers, and they had graduated and produced some good hitters in Cal Raleigh and Julio Rodriguez. Those are superstars. Like, those as your two good hitters that you've produced are great. But then they had this next wave of top 100 guys, mostly before, like, this season with Cade coming into the fold and Ryan Sloan. Mostly hitters. And many people, including myself, were like, yeah, you got to prove it. You can get these prospects. Can you develop them into good hitters? And you know what? Maybe they can. Maybe they're just a good player dev org across the board, all aspects now. But Colt up in the bigs is just so nice to see. I have nothing else to add. He's hitting really well, and the only thing is a positional headache when Donovan comes back. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, play third base every day. Keep hitting well. He just looks like a big leaguer. Like, even when he doesn't get hits, it's just clear, like, why he was such a highly touted prospect, but no prospect evaluator had him as, like, a superstar level future value, because he looks like a solid defender, which is valuable on the left side. But his hitting, it just looks like he's good at everything and not amazing at one thing. Like, his at-bats are just for lack of a better term, they're just professional. Like, he takes good pitches, he works the count, he fouls things off, he gets bat to ball pretty damn well. Again, I mentioned those quick hands is something out of the draft that people were really excited about before he even put on weight to hit for more power. It was like, yeah, this guy's hands are incredibly quick. He can get to the ball really nicely and spray it around the ballpark, and we've seen him do it. And now his first hit was a home run, but if he can hit for a little bit of power, like, that is going to be a really good player. Maybe not a superstar. Still maybe not a superstar, but that's going to be a really good player for this ball club moving forward. So that's what I've got on Colt. And JP, I love you. But I would love to see you be playing full-time third baseman, my man. Even though you made an incredible play yesterday, if you're listening to this on Thursday. Let's talk about the piggybacking for a second. That's another main topic. The solution to the Bryce Miller coming back and having 5 good pitchers, again, Luis Castillo's a good pitcher. I don't want to hear it. He's probably their worst pitcher, but I still think, and it's clear after watching him do these piggyback starts and relief appearances, that he still has plenty to give. Just maybe in shorter bursts than he used to. in his elderly age of like, how old was he? Like 31, 32. It has objectively worked, though, these 2 piggyback starts. It's not something... This is something that I feel like conservative baseball fans who are like very like, I care about batting average and stuff like that hate. They're like, this is a bunch of woke nonsense, which I understand. Like, you're having 2 starters complete one start, where maybe if you're, one of these older fans who grew up with starters always going deep into games, no matter how bad they were, they would go deep into games. But the piggybacking, honestly, I didn't foresee them doing this. So they initially went to the 6-man rotation on that long road trip, and then they shifted to this piggyback situation, and genuinely did not see that coming. I discussed this topic with my brothers, and we did not come to a consensus. It was like, it's a really tough decision to make. I still think it's a tough decision to make, because you have 3 choices. You have 6-man rotation, which has its drawbacks, where you have 1 less bullpen arm. At that point, you're putting a lot more faith in your guys to go deep in the games and your bullpen to cover more innings, which it's clear that I think this team can do, but it still leaves you open to destroying your pen in like a long stretch of game situation where it could be catastrophic to some guys' workloads. But then you get an extra day of rest for each starter. That's generally good. You can sell them on that, where they get an extra day and they feel more fresh. Another drawback, I guess, of the 6-man is they get that extra day means they get less volume, which potentially means less arbitration earnings. Then you could say maybe you pitch better with an extra day of rest, which is going to lower your ERA, which is going to lead to more arbitration earnings, whatever. You see my point. And then you have put Luis Castillo in the bullpen, which is the other option, the second option, right? And that also comes with its drawbacks. One, you have to explain to Luis Castillo, your highest paid player who's been a starter his entire career and a damn good one, that he's in the bullpen now. And you'd hope that with a good enough manager and Luis Castillo being a professional, he would accept it. I think he'd be pissed, but I think he'd accept it. This means you probably have your best 5 starters going every 5 days. You have an extra bullpen guy out there who can cover a lot of innings if you need to, which is helpful and is good for flexibility purposes for your bullpen and emergency starting pitcher services with him. The drawbacks is then, how do you keep him stretched out enough to be your fill-in for an injury in the rotation, right? Because I think they still want to keep him stretched out enough to be a starter. And he's never been a reliever either, so it's not like he's used to this. This would be a whole new thing. Like, would you have to have him go in, pitch an inning or 2 out of the bullpen, and then go down and throw 3 more simulated innings, like, in the bullpen after the game or after he comes out? Like, is that the solution? It's a little messy. And then you also, from like a value perspective, when you're looking at it as a front office person, you're like, wow, we have this really expensive guy in the bullpen. That's not amazing, is what it is, I guess. And then you have the third option, which is like optically the enlightened centrist of the 3 that, like enlightened centrists, can manage to piss off both sides, both Bryce Miller and Luis Castillo, which is piggybacking. However, I think the piggybacking is generally the option that will lead to the best outcomes on the field, and it has. It actually has. This is something I do so much in out-of-the-park baseball, and it's just so easy for me to do it when I'm looking at my computer screen, because I don't have to explain that to these guys. It's so simple. But, like, think about it, where you're trying to stretch out Bryce Miller a little bit, and they have now, and you can have Bryce Miller go, 6 innings, throw a good amount of pitches, and leave the rest to Luis Castillo, who objectively you don't want facing the order 3 times. He still looks like a super effective pitcher and can be against the order twice. And so this makes so much sense. You are maximizing the value on your roster by doing these piggyback starts. The problem is, and we saw it in the first start, where Bryce Miller was pitching so well. He's pitching a no-hitter, and Dan was so happy to give up a no-hitter because then he put in Luis Castillo. He looked unreal for the first inning. He looked better in the second, but you could tell he wasn't as juiced up. And then the plan was clearly get him 3 innings, at least. And they were winning 1-0, going into the 9th with Munoz should be ready. At that point, you just have to scrap your goddamn plans, send Luis Castillo down to pitch 50 more pitches in your bullpen under the stadium to keep him stretched out, and put Andres Munoz in to try to win the damn game. Instead, he does what everyone was dreading. He puts Luis Castillo back out there in the 9th. He blows it. Munoz, he sets it up for Munoz to blow it, and it wasn't really Munoz's fault. And it wasn't necessarily Luis Castillo's fault either. He shouldn't have been out there. But you saw the problem. But largely, he still only gave up 2 runs. It was just that the offense was putrid that night and only scored 1. The second time around, this went great. The Mariners destroyed the A's. Luis Castillo had a great start after 4 innings, and Bryce pitched the rest of the game. And then in the dugout, you saw this tough conversation between Dan and Luis. Clearly, Luis Castillo was angry. He was very angry about this because he was pitching well. Through 4 innings, he looked great, but it was clearly the plan to go to Bryce after this. And I don't know what the issue is here, because it just seems like Dan has not set the expectation correctly, is what it seems like, right? It seems like Dan has not delivered this to both guys in an effective way to tell them the plan. And he also just doesn't have the cachet as a longtime manager to pull this off if he's changing plans. Like the way that conversation looked with Luis, it looked like he was shocked Dan was going to pull him. And I get it if Luis, you're mad. If Dan told you before the game you're going 4 innings and you're cruising through 4, I get it if you're still mad when Dan says we're still taking you out because he told you before the game. This is all part of the plan. But if the messaging isn't good before the game, this is where Dan just needs to be better about this. And that's his job. It's the front office's decision to do this, and you can critique them for that. But it's Dan's job to make sure the players are happy with this situation. So it's tough. Bryce Miller says he's not comfortable with it either. It's just a tricky situation. I feel like the best possible situation to continue to try is a 6-man, even though I still think the piggybacking is the best use of resources. Because when it goes well, you get the bullpen a full day off. If you and you can plan for this. It's 1 piggyback start. So if you need bullpen arms to throw a certain amount in a week and to not get a certain amount of days on the shelf, which is how a lot of guys work. They need to pitch every other day, or at least they can't have 4 straight days sitting on the bench. They need to be throwing in a game. You can plan for that. You can plan to do that the game before or the game before that, and then when the piggyback start is coming. I just think Luis Castillo has looked great in facing 18 batters, or not 18 batters, but facing the lineup twice. He has looked great in doing that. I think that's how you get the most out of him this year, regardless of if he likes it or not. You got to be clear about it. They went to the 6-man rotation initially and then have done 2 piggyback starts in a row. The second one went great, but not in the dugout. It didn't go great in the clubhouse. It's just it's a tricky situation all around for everyone involved. But I think if you're doing the piggybacking, you just have to be clear about it. And if you're clear about it, and Luis is still throwing a hissy fit, like that's genuinely on him. Because he, at this point, he has cachet in this rotation. Again, he's the vet. He's been around the longest. He's had objectively the most success at the big league level and really successful on this team. He's making the most money. The guys clearly respect him as they respect one another. But ultimately, like the JP situation where JP is willingly moving to third base, I think Luis has to be okay with this. He has to be okay if they're very clear with how they're going to do the piggybacking. Same with Bryce. Honestly, Bryce can be angry about this, but he also, if they're clear about the expectations, has to suck it up because he needs to recognize he was hurt pretty much all of last year and didn't pitch a ton. And when he was pitching, he looked pretty hurt and has already been hurt with this year. He also just needs to accept the fact that if they want to do these, they have to do them. And both of the guys need to say, this is important to the team. This is the best possible way for us to win the most games and try to win a World Series. That is what is the most important. Both of those guys need to recognize that. But again, it's all up to how Danwilson delivers the expectations to these guys. So that's the wild card here, which is hard to trust him to do that effectively, it seems. But enough with the piggybacking. I am nearing the end of my rope. I'm going to talk for longer. But as I said, I'm still recovering from sinus surgery, and this is like the most nonstop talking I've done since that. And my face is sore. They went up in my sinuses and inflated a balloon up there. It was crazy. But I do want to talk about Rob Refsnyder and the platoon situation. Talked about it with my brothers. Tyler lovingly put it to all of you who complain about platoons that you need to get real and watch baseball because this happens with every team. And it's true. Every team does platoons. But to people's points of wanting Refsnyder off the team already, I get it. I understand. This is around the time when teams would do this. We just saw Tyler O'Neill get DFA'd. Like late May, early June, after a 2-month sample is when teams will start doing it. Baseball teams are patient. Baseball fans are not patient, which is crazy to me. Like, I understand when your team sucks and when a guy is sucking a lot and your team's not winning, not being patient with them. It is your right to not be patient with them. But if you're a fan of baseball, how can you not realize at this point that sometimes you do need to let things play out for an extended period of time to really see if it's going to work? You can't make knee-jerk reactions because that's how you make mistakes. That is how you let guys go and they light the world on fire on another team. You can't be too cavalier about decisions before June or even before July, frankly. You got to let things play out. And so with Refsnyder, they were always going to let it play out, no matter how bad things got. And things are bad. He had a very good A's series. Credit to him. I hope that's the start of the turnaround. Because if he starts to turn it around, the front office is going to look smart. And every front office would have done this. Given the Mariners roster limitations with their right-handed hitters and the upper minors too, every organization would have given Rob a very proven, for like a half decade now, lefty masher, one of the best in the sport. They all would have given him this run to figure it out. And so if he does figure it out, a lot of people, again, I think need to realize this is just how this works. And listen, his end of season numbers, no matter what he does the rest of the season, might not be good. I think I tweeted it today, if he has a 115 WRC plus or above the rest of the season against lefties, who cares what he did in March, April, and May? Like, it was bad, sure. The team didn't necessarily need him to do it well because the division was so bad. It would have been nice if he did it well. But if he's good the rest of the way, who cares, man? Like, who cares? And he might just do that because while I understand the frustrations with guys like AJ Pollock, who wasn't a good signing from the start. Like the platoon stuff they've done in the past that hasn't worked. Some of it was bad process. Mitch Garver, I don't think was bad process. It just really didn't work out. But like an AJ Pollock type or Colton Wong, not even Colton Wong. AJ Pollock is the one people point to. That was bad process. Signing Rob Refsnyder to like $6.5 million for a team that didn't really have a good DH depth right-handed hitting bat at the big league level was objectively a good signing. And people think $6.5 million is a lot of money. It's not. The price for an everyday veteran on the market is pretty much double that. It's like 11 to 14 million. You can see it when guys sign 1-year deals like that for veterans, or 2-year deals for that same average annual value. So you take a guy who's not going to get a full-time load. He's going to get half the plate appearances. $6.5 million is where you land. It makes sense. Still, objectively, a good signing. If he continues to do this, if this A's series was a mirage and he continues to suck in June, like into the second week of June, I'm so for DFAing him and releasing him. I really am. It's just not surprising they left him on the team to figure it out until now. Part of the calculus, like as I said, is the depth at the high minors and the big league level for his position, right? You have Victor Robles who came back, but he's not exactly the same type of player. You want him in the field. His value is more in the field, base running, off the bench, spark, They like Mitch Garver doesn't really fulfill that DH role now. He's just a backup catcher. And then you look at the minors, and it's who else do they have who can like DH, backup corners, first base, like Rob Refsnyder, and hopefully hit lefties well. The only guy left, really, they tried Connor Joe, who wasn't too bad, but realistically, the fact that we were pining for Connor Joe was a real signifier there of like, man, down so bad. Like his track record, there's no optimism that he's going to continue to actually be solid. The other options, Patrick Wisdom, not a serious option. And then the other one is Brennan Davis, who I think at some point has to get a chance, whether it's via injury or if Rob just keeps sucking, because he's mashing in AAA. And he's actually made some improvements. Like he's actually been a good AAA hitter. He's a post-hype guy who's a career minor leaguer, but he's actually mashed in AAA a lot. The problem is his contact and whiff rates in AAA have been awful, and teams don't want to take the chance on a guy who's projected to have a 45% strikeout rate in the big leagues. But Brennan Davis, to start this season, has improved the contact rates. He's not striking out as much, and he's still hitting for power. It looks like legitimate improvements. Is it going to translate? Still questionable. I question every PCL hitter who's good and gets promoted. And he's the obvious next man up, but that's about it. Like, their options are Connor Joe and Brennan Davis. And that's kind of it. There's no other guy like top prospect knocking on the door. Like Michael Arroyo, if he was at AAA and hitting well, would be an easy, like, yeah, okay, we'll replace him. You get positional versatility and a guy who you might want to DH because he sucks in the field. And he's one of your top 10, top 15 prospects. None of those guys are in the high minors and hit from the right side. So the Mariners were kind of hamstrung with this decision. And then the other aspect of this with roster flexibility is you don't want to DFA or lose a guy too early like this, because then whatever depth you have might be completely thinned out. Because what happens then if you DFA Rob, someone picks him up off waivers, the Red Sox probably, and then you call Brennan Davis, and Brennan Davis either sucks or Victor Robles gets hurt or Brennan Davis gets hurt. And then you're stuck with Connor Joe or Patrick Wisdom. And then the list of names continues to grow thin. Like, you don't want to cut ties with a guy with zero options this early in the season, because no matter how good the depth is, you still need the depth for the rest of the season. So teams don't want to do this early in the season, and they shouldn't. It's a good process that they don't, because that concern about losing and thinning your depth this early in the season is bad. That's how teams can die. When injuries pile up and you don't have even bad guys who can fill the spots, you still need the guys to fill the spots. So with all that said, Rob looked great against the A's these past two games. I hope this is a turning point. He needs it. The team needs it. The fans freaking need it. Otherwise, it's Brennan Davis time, and that's pretty much the only viable alternative. Otherwise, we're going to see more Connor Joe. Because Patrick Wisdom was terrible, man. Patrick Wisdom genuinely was awful. Sorry, I was being really mean to Will Wilson. I forgot about him. Who else is a part of this group of guys who could fill Rob's spot? Like Leo Rivas, I guess, is still there. Ryan Bliss, like, look at this, man. Like, this isn't the ideal spot for a team like the Mariners. Is Michael Arroyo. It is that you have a good enough farm system that you've developed while you've been winning in this competitive window to where your depth to replace a guy like Rob Refsnyder, a veteran who's not hitting, is a prospect that not only you have hopes is good, but people across the industry have at least some consensus is a talented player. And the problem with that is, like, Colt Emerson was a lefty. He fit that exact bill, but he was a lefty. Right? So that presents an issue. And unfortunately, Michael Arroyo is just... My dog is yelling at the mailman in the background. He agrees with me. The problem with Michael Arroyo is he's like a year off. Like, he would have been kind of the perfect guy to slot in here in this conversation. But he's just didn't fit the timeline. And even the other minor league hitters that the Mariners have produced, there's so many lefties. Like, there's so many lefties in this system of really good hitters. It's like they're all left-handed hitting, and that's kind of a problem across the league. I was just talking to my brothers about this, but Matt Gale wrote an article. I think I quoted it with a tweet about Milton Bradley. But Matt Gale wrote an article about the Phillies and Dave Dombrowski's inability to find a right-handed hitting outfielder that is good. And across the sport this year, literally the worst OPS since like the 1940s for right-handed hitting outfielders, and like the worst 5 years in the history of baseball for those guys OPS wise have all come in the past like decade. Like, right-handed hitting outfielders are just not in vogue. And the Mariners system, look at the Mariners system is like that. Colt Emerson, Cole Young, all the guys who were coming up, lefties, Lazaro Montes, Johnny Farmello, like, fell in this lesson as a switch hitter. But you look at these guys, and it's like even their lower levels. Yorger Batista is a lefty. And then it's Michael Arroyo's the one holdout. And God, it actually might be huge for this team in the next few years if he's good and can fill that role. Because then they don't have to keep looking for the Rob Refsnyders. But I will continue to defend the Rob Refsnyder signing, even if he continues to be awful. It was a good process. Hope he figures it out. Before I'm officially out of here, Julio Rodriguez is playing the best baseball we've seen him play in the months of March, April, and May since he debuted. Defensively, I think it's going to come around and even out. He's been oddly grading out poorly in center field, which is weird. But he's been such a good defender his first 4 years. He's earned the right for us to be skeptical at the metrics, and I think by the end of the year, I think those are going to be fine. Maybe not like truly elite after the poor start, but I don't think he's a bad defensive center fielder all of a sudden. He is a 118 WRC plus as of right now, before the last series of May. That's the best mark in his career through the end of May. So if he just continues hitting pretty well against the Diamondbacks, did I say the right team? I think I did. If he continues to hit well in the last series, this is going to be, we can say with fact, the best he's ever hit before June in his career. And if a man can hope, if you just take this, strap on his career norm June through September, we're looking at if you remove Aaron Judge from the league, an MVP. Like, we're looking at a 7+ WAR season. A superstar, bona fide superstar season from him. And God willing, I hope it happens. But it's just really nice to see. He just looks so good right now. And it's just so different than how we've seen him look to start the season. His April was already good. And he wasn't even lighting the world on fire, but it was like, this is great for Julio. And so again, if he heats up like he usually does in the middle of the year, oh God, incredible. He's such a special player. But that's it. I'm going to leave you with that. Pretty much right at 50 minutes. So thank you for listening to this one. I appreciate it. I will be back for the next pod sooner than the last. I can pretty much guarantee you that. I'm not going to Hawaii. I'm not getting any more surgery. Knock on wood. So I will be back in the month of June. But as always, I appreciate you listening. I hope you have a great rest of your week. And go Mariners.